You can start now.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, now you can
Okay.
start now.
Okay, sir. Okay. Honorable Mrs. Justice Sujata Manohar, Honorable Mr. Justice B.N. Sri Krishna, Senior Advocate Dr. Milind Sate, Senior Advocate Mr. Nitin Thakkar, Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Dr. Dilip Uke, Honorable Registrar Dr. Anil Warrier, other dignitaries, guests, faculty members, students, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai, I, Anand Srivas, Assistant Professor of Law, welcome you all to the Sri G.A. Thakkar Memorial Lecture on Commercial Law, Contemporary Issues and Challenges. Thank you for joining us on this special occasion as we unveil the portrait of Sri G.A. Thakkar. Our university has always strived for excellence, as aptly stated by Henry Ford. We at MNLU Mumbai strongly believe that if everyone is moving forward together, then success strongly follows. Our constant endeavor has been to help our students and our institution grow, learn, and develop. The GA Thakkar grant is supporting us in our endeavor. Today, we take this another step in this direction with our first GA Sri GA Thakkar Memorial Lecture. Today, we are very fortunate to have with us Dr. Milind Sate, Senior Advocate and President of Bombay Bar Association, and very familiar face to us. Dr. Sate, through his eloquent practice, has provided students and budding lawyers the mantra to success, which is in-depth study of facts, in-depth study of applicable law, research, and formulation of proposition based on facts and law. I would now like to welcome Dr. Sate to tell us more about Sri G.A. Thakkar.
Good morning, everybody. Honorable Justice Sujata Manohar, Honorable Justice B.N. Sri Krishna, Dr. Dilip Uke, Vice Chancellor, Maharashtra National Law University, the other office bearers of the university, the registrar, the faculty, Mr. Nitin Thakkar, Senior Advocate, members of G.A. Thakkar family, my student friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to welcome you all this morning for the G.A. Thakkar Memorial Lecture in honor of Gordhan Bhai Thakkar, or G.A. as he popularly was known as. Gordhan Bhai Thakkar, or Gordhan Anandilal Thakkar, was born on 14th January 1921 in Mumbai, and he passed his law examination in 1941 at age of 20. In 1943, he passed the Advocates OS examination conducted by the Bombay High Court, which was as tough examination in those days like the civil services examination. After clearing that examination, he started practice on the original side of the Bombay High Court, and with his razor-sharp mind and elephantine memory, he soon amassed large commercial law practice. In his practice of over 45 years, he came to be known as one of the best commercial lawyers in the country. He was thorough in his first principles as well as completely updated with judge-made laws. In fact, there are stories about juniors as well as seniors going up to him at his table in the library and ask him to help about the law, and he would immediately come up with the citations. Sometimes they were not, the juniors and seniors were not happy because those citations would also be against the proposition which they were looking for. For a few years, he became a judge of the Bombay City Civil Court between 1956 and 57. However, he resigned as a judge of City Civil Court and resumed his practice at the Bombay High Court. Thereafter, he once again became a judge. Thereafter, he became a judge of the Bombay High Court again for a short tenure in 1966 and 67. However, he demitted that office because of medical reasons. The single judge's work on original side in those days included short causes, chamber work, company work, suits, etc., which was generally assigned to him, and he would do, as the seniors practicing in those days would recall, work of almost 6 judges in a particular session. One of the important judgments he has delivered as a judge of the Bombay High Court was in respect of rights of allottees of the plot owners under the town planning scheme under the Regional Town Planning Act. Those days it was Bombay Regional Town Planning Act. He held that the allottee is entitled for a vacant possession of such a allotted plot from the municipal corporation or the planning authority which is formulating the town planning scheme. That judgment was appealed by the Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai to Supreme Court, and then the leading judgment on this subject was delivered by the Supreme Court in the case of Municipal Corporation for Greater Mumbai versus Advanced Builders. That judgment is still a Bible on the rights of the allottees under the town planning scheme under the Maharashtra Regional and Town Planning Act. At that time, he was one of the most sought-after commercial lawyers, with his very efficient, effective, and powerful advocate, and almost an intimidating cross-examiner. He came across with his warmth, affection, and pleasing smile to display his pleasant, calm personality. When I joined the bar with Justice D.R. Dhanuka, there was a trial going on before Justice Bharucha, in which G.A. Thakkar was on behalf of the plaintiffs. I had the privilege and opportunity to observe Mr. G.A. Thakkar examine and cross-examine the witnesses in a virtually intimidating style. Those witnesses included the chairman, managing directors, and the top executives of all financial institutions who were the defendants in that suit. It was really a treat for a junior to watch the performance of G.A. Thakkar in a commercial court in a witness action. Much before the alternate dispute resolution, that is ADR, came on the legal horizon and virtually became the necessity and got statutory recognition in terms of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act of 1996 and the amendment to the Code of Civil Procedure, Govardhan Bhai had practiced ADR in large numbers. Govardhan Bhai had learned the hard way that the decision of the court after a long-drawn fight left a bitter legacy on the litigant. Often, all the parties, including the nominal winner, ruled the results. Many cases required a wise intercession and the healing touch of a detached judge, which Govardhan Bhai provided. He would, with his knack of taking the score of commercial dispute, settle the matter by urging, pleading, coaxing not only his clients but also the other side. Today, we have various courses preparing trained mediators. Govardhan Bhai was a living encyclopedia of whatever today is taught in ADR courses. He also ensured that through negotiations, the matters are settled. He never advised the client to litigate to the extent that they break down financially and mentally. This he practiced as a judge of City Civil Court, Bombay High Court, and also as a lawyer. Not only his own cases he would get settled, but the other matters, lawyers and judges would request him to settle the matter, and he would readily help. During his entire practice of 45 years, he has settled large number of commercial matters, family dispute, and succession cases. Govardhan Bhai's capabilities as a lawyer were almost legendary. He had a quick and very effective grasp on the subject. He would have known and read every minute detail of the brief with voluminous pages, and he would argue whenever the case was called out without reference to the pages and without any reference to note. He had amazing clarity of judgment, which helped him evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of every aspect of the case, which enabled him to place right point at the right time to create an impact. Coupled with this, his persuasive and forceful advocacy made him a very strong, efficient advocate and a formidable opponent. Apart from being a busy lawyer, he took keen interest in the affairs of the Bar Association. He also served on the disciplinary committees of the Bar Council of Maharashtra, and he fearlessly took stand on issues regardless of the consequences, whether it would please someone or displease someone. His achievements as a judge and as a lawyer outshone the kindness, his generosity, and abiding belief in God. He was very pious and a religious person, closely associated with Swadhyay movement of late Pandurang Shastri Athavale. Above all, he was a family man, disciplinarian father, a doting grandfather, a complete family man, and a complete ideal human being. What better way to commemorate his memory than a talk by Justice Sri Krishna on the very appropriate topic associated with his practice and with his life, that is, commercial law, issues, and contemporary challenges, the subject which would have been very dear to his heart. This is an appropriate tribute to Gordon Bhai. When Gordon Bhai passed away in 1985, his family, which included the entire legal fraternity, brought out a volume paying rich tribute to him. I can only conclude by describing Gordon Bhai, quoting Karsetji Cooper, the then Bombay Bar Association president, what he said about Gordon Bhai's life. Life is like froth and bubble. Two things stand like rock: kindness in another's trouble, courage in one's own. Gordon Bhai truly reflected this perception. We celebrate his life and commemorate his memory with this morning's lecture on the subject of commercial law, issues and challenges. I once again welcome all of you and thank Maharashtra National Law University for organizing this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Milind Sathe. Indeed, his journey was marvelous. We are honored to have with us Honorable Mrs. Justice Sujata Manohar, former Judge, Supreme Court of India, and the second woman judge to be elevated to the Supreme Court. Justice Manohar has many firsts to her credit. She was appointed as an additional judge to Bombay High Court in 1971 and a permanent judge in 1978. Chief Justice of Bombay High Court in 1994 and thereafter Chief Justice of Kerala High Court and elevated to the Judge of Supreme Court from 1994 to 1999. After her retirement, she has continued to serve. She is an honorary fellow of the Lady Margaret Hall, Oxford, and an honorary bencher of the Lincoln in London. She has been inspiration not only for women lawyers but for the entire country. She has always been part of our university's events and her charisma continues to enthuse our students. May I welcome Justice Manohar to share her thoughts with us and to unveil the portrait of Mr. G.A. Thakkar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justice Sri Krishna, Dr. Dilip Uke and other officials of the university, Mr. Milind Sathe, Mr. Nitin Thakkar and members of his family, lawyers, law students, ladies and gentlemen. Next January is Gordon Bhai Thakkar's birth centenary. I am very happy to have this privilege of taking part in this function in his honor and paying my tribute to a warm and friendly senior, a man who was a complete lawyer and a judge. A lawyer with mastery over first principles of law, an excellent advocate, and a teacher one could go to in order to solve any legal conundrums, as Mr. Milind Sathe pointed out. As a judge, he had an amazing insight into the truth behind the pleaded facts. He was a judge who strove to do complete justice. In his court, disputes were settled to the satisfaction of both sides. As a judge, he had an uncanny ability to deal with many matters at the same time. While under his guidance, one matter was being settled in his court, he would ask the court master to call out the next matter. The next matter would then proceed to a settlement after some discussion, and so on. As a result, a large number of matters in his court got satisfactorily resolved every day. It was an extraordinary feat, not to be attempted by lesser mortals, I am afraid. Despite his deep knowledge of law and commercial sense, he remained unassuming. I remember as a junior lawyer going to him with an unusual plea I had taken in a cause of action that I drafted in a plaint. I was hoping for a reassurance that I was right, and he did not fail me. He discussed the first principles and said I was correct in taking the plea. Whenever he had time in the High Court library as a lawyer, he would readily discuss any current legal issues with the lawyers present, junior or senior. Gordon Bey did not come from a legal family. His father had a provision store in a small town in Kutch. He was educated by his uncle at Anand. After matriculation, he wanted to do law, but his father wanted him to join the family business. The principal of his school went all the way to Kutch to convince his father that he should allow Gordon Bey to study law. And the father agreed, but he refused to finance the education. As a result, Gordon Bey had to do tuitions for some time in order to finance his studies. After qualifying as a lawyer, he came to Mumbai, worked in the chambers of that eminent lawyer Bhulabhai Desai, and he rose in the legal profession by his sheer ability. His life should be an inspiration to the law students. If you are really good in your work and you study well, it is possible to reach the top by sheer merit in this profession. I end with the words of Mr. A.S. Cooper, senior lawyer, who spoke at the reference given to him on his untimely demise. Describing the prodigious abilities of Gordon Bey, he said, he had almost a fantastic knack of knowing where the truth lay, a burning desire to see that justice was done, a great abhorrence of all arbitrary behavior. Such men are rare, and we need to remember and honor them. I have great pleasure in virtually unveiling his portrait. Thank you.
Yes.
That is time university.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Justice Padova. We are very fortunate to have with us today Honorable Mr. Justice P.N. Sri Krishna, former Judge, Supreme Court of India. Justice P.N. Sri Krishna was appointed as an additional judge of the Bombay High Court in 1990, a permanent judge in 1991, Chief Justice of Kerala High Court in 2001, elevated to the Judge of Supreme Court from 2002 to 2006.
YouTube बची है.
2006. And Justice B.N. Sri Krishna is a visionary who has paved the way for India into uncharted waters such as international arbitration and data protection. Who better than Justice Sri Krishna to deliver the first G.A. Thakkar Memorial Lecture on commercial law, contemporary issues and challenges. We are certain that Justice B.N. Sri Krishna will enlighten us with aspects which would otherwise be inconceivable. May I now welcome Justice B.N. Sri Krishna to deliver the memorial lecture.
Thank you, Anand. My esteemed sister, Sujata Manohar, shall I say, Honorable Justice Sujata? Sorry, I'm too far.
Not required.
And Justice Rohan Dalvi, Registrar, the Vice Chancellor, the Registrar of the University, Mr. Sathe, and of course, dear Nitin Thakkar, and all the faculty members, students, and lawyers who are tuned into this. It is said that if you tread the path of great people, you will unerringly reach your destiny. Well, dear sister Sujata was the Chief Justice who persuaded me to accept the Bombay Rights Commission, and she gave me encouraging words. And then she went away to Kerala within a short time. I made bold to follow her to Kerala. Then from there, she went to the Supreme Court, and I tread her path and landed up in the Supreme Court. Mahagano Yenagatas Sapanchaha is the saying in Sanskrit. Now turning to, excuse me. Now to turn to the subject of commercial law, contemporary issues and challenges. At the outset, I thank the university, thank Mr. Nitin Thakkar, Mr. Sathe, and all my friends who have given me this opportunity of profitably utilizing this enforced idleness which the epidemic has subjected me to. If constitutional law can be described as the spirit of the legal system, commercial law would be its lifeblood. The strength of any country depends on its economic strength, which is directly proportional to the strength of its trade and commerce. Commerce provides the required suppleness to fiscal consolidation. It also supplies the velocity and momentum to the circulation of money, leading to expansion of the credit system and engenders commerce, economic stability to withstand cyclical or non-cyclical assault on the economy. With the opening of the Indian markets to foreign direct investment and development of trade policy, commerce in India has grown rapidly in stature over the years, enabling the country's progression from underdeveloped to developing economy according to the World Trade Organization norms. Commerce as a concept embraces many facets involving business, trade, and consumer transactions. Law governing commerce is considered basically a civil law, which intersects many issues of public and private law. This is bound to be so as commercial law governs trade and commerce not only in the country but is also called to account for trade and commercial relations with other countries. Recognizing its importance in maintaining comity amongst nations in trade and commerce, the United Nations has established several agencies under its aegis to deal with several aspects of internationally acceptable desiderata for maintaining trade and commerce relations amongst the member states. World Trade Organization, popularly known as WTO, and General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, popularly known as GATT, are two such striking examples where member states have surrendered a part of their sovereignty and agreed to resolve their differences on an agreed common platform according to consensually accepted norms. Any assessment of the efficacy of such international instruments is beyond the purview of the present talk. The beginnings of commercial law, at least in India, go back to the Smriti period, said to be around 4 to 6 BC. The Ramayana in the Kachit Sarga of the Aranyakanda gives us an idea of the ruler's duty with regard to ensuring the well-being of the subject in matters including commerce. References are also to be found in the Mahabharata to this aspect at several places. But the real tangible development of commercial law in ancient India can be seen in the Smritis of Manu, Yajnavalkya, and several others. One sees it being explained in Kautilya's Arthashastra and also in Kamandaka's Niti Sastra. Again, as a part of the ruler's obligation to hold the scales even in trade and commerce. Manu expatiates on how the market trade needs to be resolved. It's an interesting concept. We have developed it as a part of our socialistic norms of governance. Way back, Manu had said that how the trader should fix the price depends on what is a reasonable profit and what is his cost on that. Elementary thing in business, but nobody follows it today unless the government forces you to follow it. He also explains, Yajnavalkya again explains how the prices of commodities should be fixed after making a margin for reasonable profit, and that sale of purchase shall take place only at such fixed prices. Your concept of MRP. He postulates the liability of the trader for violating the price order and how they should be dealt with. Apart from this, Yajnavalkya Smriti is a veritable treasure trove of what we today know as civil procedure for resolution of civil disputes, from filing of claims, written statements, framing of issues, and the trial, the hearing of arguments of both sides, and finally rendering judgment and order. He also talked about enforcement of decrees. With the constraint of time in mind, I have not elaborated on this topic, and probably they can be deferred to a future occasion without the dark shadow of the evil pandemic oppressing our minds as at present. The origin of commercial law in Europe can be traced to the Middle Ages, around 16th century in Italy. The jurist Benvenuto Straccia in 1553 published a treatise called De Mercatura Seu Mercatore Tractatus, which is one of the first treatises on commercial law in Europe. Initially, commercial laws in Europe were intended only for merchants, for their contracts, practices, and rules of maritime rights. But with expanding trade and commercial relations, the scope of commercial law expanded into bankruptcy, investments, and other subjects. A substantial part of the law was developed by the Romans and became a part of the Roman law, which was later adopted and adapted into common law in England over the millennia. The comparatively stable political situation in England post the Magna Carta spurred legal thinkers and philosophers to postulate varied principles of law to resolve disputes arising in national and international commerce. Some of the brilliant minds gave them concrete shape by their pronouncements in judicial dicta. The development of common law in England followed a long evolutionary process. The judicial precedent till the situation was ripe for parliamentary intervention by legislation, more particularly during the 17th to 19th century. British rule in India resulted in adopting of English law and passing of several statutes touching commercial laws modeled on English statutes. Unlike in some European countries, commercial law in India is neither contained in a code nor does it have a fixed meaning assignable to it. Thanks to its ubiquitous origin, it is strewn across the gamut of Indian laws, spanning across titles, labels, and boundaries, and attempts to reduce the entropy of the system of commerce by bringing some kind of order into it. By definition, commercial law is the set of laws relating to the conduct of trade and sales. It affects businesses of persons, merchants, and commerce in more ways than one. Commercial law is variedly known as business law or mercantile law or even trade law, depending on which aspects of the practices of trade and commerce it seeks to regulate. Commercial law effectively governs trade between businesses and consumers. It creates a regulated system that is fair for both parties so that trade can be conducted in a reasonable manner. Without these sets of laws that govern conduct of commerce, there would be a scenario of what Kautilya eloquently talks of as the Matsya Nyaya, or the principle where the big fish eats the small fish, rendering it disastrous equally for businesses and consumers. Dealing with commercial law, one cannot but emphasize the role of commercial lawyers. Incidentally, we have heard about Gordon Bhai, who was such a brilliant commercial lawyer, but I remember more of him as a warm human being whom I used to talk into in the Vibra Bar Library probably every day. I did not have the privilege of appearing in his court, nor do I remember. No, by the time I became a court judge, he was no longer alive. But I have seen him in action, and I have seen at first hand his brilliance in advocacy and his ability to settle matters at the drop of a hat. And that he was a warm, amiable person is my personal knowledge, which I have experienced. Dealing with law, and particularly commercial law, one cannot but emphasize the role of commercial lawyers in society. Notwithstanding the caustic gibes of Shakespeare and Bernard Shaw about lawyers in general. Unless the lawyers are trained in commercial law, the whole process of dealing with commercial disputes will leave them feeling overwhelmed and gasping. Without a commercial lawyer on his side, a trader or businessman would not know what his options are or how to even approach any disputes or conflicts. So it is obvious that a commercial lawyer is crucial for any successful dispute or conflict resolution between a business and consumer. Doubting Thomases may not believe it, but in reality, commercial lawyers often do help in avoiding the disputes going to court, and that is something one will not be able to avoid without their expertise. Knowledge of commercial laws is of greater relevance for big businesses that are most likely to deal with very large sums of money running into millions of dollars today. A commercial lawyer can make sure that one is legally covered from all foreseeable angles before any financial transaction is envisaged and concluded. He can anticipate any risks involved in a transaction and also identify how to mitigate or minimize such risks. Commercial lawyers can also effectively draft the legal documents so there is protection, at least on paper, by clearly enumerating the terms of the transaction and outlining the risks, if any, involved and more. Banking and money transactions are serious areas of business management, and commercial lawyers can greatly help in that area also. The traditionally recognized branches of commercial law are contract law, negotiable instruments act, intellectual property rights law, property law, business regulations, corporate law, and tax law. With rapid advances made in the manner of carrying on trade in business, today we may have to even reckon with laws of competition, regulatory laws affecting capital markets, insurance, monetary and fiscal policy laws, exchange control laws, insolvency and bankruptcy codes. In today's digital world, we cannot afford to underplay the role of data protection, artificial intelligence, and e-commerce laws, amongst others. Commercial laws would also cover some aspects of environmental laws, real estate, consumer protection, and food safety laws as far as they impact commerce and trade entities. It was traditionally thought, but unlike property and land-related disputes, which go on for generations and linger over a long period, this touching trade and commercial law would and had to be disposed of expeditiously with the facile assumption that such disputes, unlike other disputes, could be resolved without long trials. Instances of disputes relating to commercial law are contract violations, advertising disputes, market term violations, unfair trader practices, deficiency in services, leakage of trade secrets, infringement of IPRs and consumer claims, and so on and so on. The traditional thinking met its Waterloo as it failed to reckon with the ingenuity of the disputants and their lawyers. The inability of courts for various reasons to catch up with the backlog and India becoming a party to international covenants like UNCITRAL brought to the fore the need for alternative dispute resolution remedies like mediation, conciliation, and arbitration, spawning the Arbitration and Conciliation Act of 1996 with all its amendments as updated till 2015. Finding the resolution of commercial disputes had also slid along the slow path of decision making and taking a cue from the jurisdictional divisions formed in the English courts, Parliament emulated it by enacting the Commercial Courts Act of 2015. As its preamble says, it is an act to provide for the constitution of commercial courts, commercial appellate court, commercial division, and commercial appellate division in the High Court for adjudicating commercial disputes of specified value and matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. This act was announced with great fanfare and was bruited about to be the panacea to unclog the arteries of court, at least with regard to commercial disputes. There is no doubt that it is an innovative idea, but as often, there is always a slip betwixt the cup and the lip. For the idea to work, it requires commensurate infrastructure and manpower of judges and support staff. With the rate of appointment of judges being extremely tardy, the Act has made the existing judges wear different hats during the day and declare themselves to the commercial courts as contemplated by the Act. I remember 25 years ago, we used to sit in the court, in the Bombay High Court, and as single judges, and we would have some 15 jurisdictional cases, right from company law to arbitration to all kinds of jurisdictions. And every 10 minutes, the jurisdiction was kept changing. I'm not very sure that despite this commercial act coming into force, the situation is any better today from what I hear from my friends at the bar and the bench. The transformation, I may say, is somewhat like putting the engine of a Ferrari onto an ambassador without any changes made in the other system and expecting it to win the Monte Carlo racing event. From what I hear from friends at the bar and the bench, the quality of the portion has remained unchanged despite the new flagons in which it is served. What really ails the system has not been poor. The judges still continue to grapple with disproportionate burden of cases, and there is still inadequate budgetary support, as there is still considerable phase lag between the institution of a case and its ripening into the hearing stage. Improvement, if any, seems marginal and far from being optimal, if not ideal. Arbitration was considered to be a fast and ideal remedy for commercial disputes, with judges and district courts routinely treating challenges towards the first appeal, calling for R&P by cryptic orders, with even High Court admitting with alacrity writ petitions and granting stay orders and injunctions therein. The charm that Tejas has seen on the face of arbitration seems to have faded. Mediation and conciliation are still anathema to a large number of unenlightened lawyers who deem them an attempt to derail their successful journeys to their respective banks. It is doubtful if it can be boldly asserted today that commercial disputes are resolved faster than their cousins than non-commercial disputes, despite the new machinery put in place. A fair and critical assessment needs to be made as to whether the new act has really changed the system as radically as was envisioned. Do we have a set of courts deciding only commercial disputes with requisite dispatch? Again, if the majority of the available judges are diverted to dealing with commercial disputes, what does happen to the non-commercial disputes and even criminal matters, which must also command high priority? Surely the resources of chief justices in the metropolises in the High Court, where the density of commercial litigation is quite high, must be severely stressed. Each legislation or legislative amendment seems to entail addition of disputes to the general pool of disputes that is already deep and wide enough. With the government dabbling in commerce and trade in the name of public good, inevitably the ill effects of bureaucratic delay have compounded the situation by adding to delays in resolution of even essentially minor commercial disputes. Add to it the inability of the courts at all levels to effectively handle the backlog. And what do we get? We get decisions like White Industries, Vodafone, Amtrak, and many like one in the pipeline. The objectives undoubtedly are hypothetical, but the results on the ground are inversely proportional to the hype. since the pandemic has virtually paralyzed, if not actually crippled the country's economy, I shall protest, ignore the woeful inadequacy of resources made available to the judiciary, though as compared to what it was 25 years ago when I left the Bombay High Court, today the resources are to be better. I assume it to be so. I would only end by complimenting the judges for their phenomenal attempt to keep afloat or even keep the listing ship of judiciary amidst the weather, fair or foul, and their attempt to ensure that the arteries of the judicial vein are kept unclogged despite all the negative factors that are affecting them. Basically, the attempt should be to ensure. I can give instances from my own personal experience when I was a judge. Now, today, if you go to any other country, either England or Germany or United States or even Singapore, they have a simple thing like a transcription of evidence. Now, if our courts could follow the same, they would be spending much less time in dictation and redoing. And of course, the solution that has been offered is to have commissioners to record evidence, which I'm told has turned out to be an unmitigated disaster because the work of the judge increases every time because the commissioner cannot dispose of an objection raised. Now, when I was in Bombay High Court, I had studied the issue and I made a recommendation. I said, all that is, and the cost of the infrastructure was not much, it was about 1,30,000 rupees or something for each machine. Only thing it required the stenographer to be educated and trained in operating those machines, which would have cost a little more. And the answer given to me was, that it is much beyond the budgetary allocation. Now, even today, not even in the Supreme Court, forget the High Court and District Court, not even the Supreme Court, do we have a modern transcription methodology. Is it such a complex? We are talking of artificial intelligence today, of trying to analyze data and fit it into legal parameters. But can't we solve a simple situation like this? Now, this is some discussion I have had with Chief Justices at all levels, even the Chief Justice of India, Chief Justices of India, and nobody seems to be able to find a solution to forget about this. Well, it always takes somebody to build a cat, and I hope someday someone will build a cat. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I only end by saying that if all commercial lawyers were as excellent as Gordon Bhai, we would have less litigation, we would have less burden on the judges to deal with, and all of us would be better off, though some lawyers may complain that they wouldn't be better off. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Justice B.N. Krishna, for enlightening us and sharing your thoughts on all the gamuts of today's issues pertaining to commercial law. We would now like to welcome Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Dilip Uke, who has shown us that a great leader is not only who does the great things, but also inspires others too. Even in these challenging times, Honorable Mumbai has continued to achieve its aim of excellence, and the credit goes to a leader. May we welcome you, sir, to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Anand. Honorable Justice B.N. Sri Krishna, sir, the chief guest of today's program. Honorable Justice Mrs. Sujata Manohar, Madam. Advocate Senior Counsel Milind Sathe, sir. Our great well-wisher and donor, Senior Counsel Advocate Nitinji Thakkar, his family members, Honorable Justice Nitin Damdar, Judge Bombay High Court, he was to join. He had some difficulty also to join, if he has joined. Dr. Anil Variat, Registrar of Maharashtra National Law University, my colleagues, and all other dear participants. At the outset, I thank Honorable Justice B.N. Sri Krishna, sir, Honorable Justice Mrs. Sujata Manohar, Madam, Advocate Milind Sathe, sir, and Advocate Nitinji Thakkar, sir, for having graced this occasion. I do recollect and remember the meeting of advisory committee held at Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai on 30th of March 2019, wherein after just meeting was to be over, I had just happened to appeal to all the participants, wherein Advocate Sate sir, Advocate Thakkar sir, and all others were there, including Honorable Justice Abhayji Oak, now Chief Justice of Karnataka High Court. That since the Maharashtra National Law University was established by the government, it is new one. Of course, government is trying to support the university in its own way. Nevertheless, it has its own limitations and restrictions. Hence, we appeal to all those who are there present. So please generously support to the university by way of establishing chair or establishing endowments, so on and so forth. And it was really a great surprise. Just immediately after the meeting, Advocate Thakkar sir had come to me and expressed his desire and willingness to support the university. And during the course of discussion, the thought came out, and ultimately it was materialized that in the memory of his great father, Honorable Justice G.A. Thakkar, late Justice D.A. Thakkar, he has set up the endowment, donating rupees 20 lakhs to the Maharashtra National Law University, holding training sessions, conferences, and particularly the moot court competitions in commercial laws as such. Sir, on behalf of the Maharashtra National Law University and the whole family, I sincerely express my indebtedness to Advocate Nitinji Thakkar sir for generously helping and generously donating and establishing endowment in the name of his father. When the thought again out of the discussion came that it is to be inaugurated and some kind of activities to be initiated. So it was again the great and good work of Advocate Thakkar sir, who requested Honorable Justice B.N. Shrik sir to deliver the first G.A. Thakkar Memorial Lecture in the name of in the memory of his father, great father. As we could see the live sketch of Justice G.A. Thakkar, it is true that there are several people today in the society, in the country. However, to have such a person who was not only a great legal luminary, but rather the great human being, and with that legacy which has been inherited by Advocate Nitinji Thakkar, it is really in today's time a rare quality and rare commodity. And hence, once again, I thank and express my sincere gratitude to Advocate Thakkar and his family for the same. Having heard Honorable Justice P.N. Shri Krishna sir, and as well as Honorable Justice Sujata Manohar madam. Sorry, I missed Honorable Justice Mrs. Roshan Dalvi madam is also there in the participant audience. I did say even in the past when Justice B.N. Shri Krishna sir was the chief guest that he is also another great legal luminary. That having heard his not only a lecture, rather I would say a kind of whole history of the commercial law which he has described. Commercial laws are the lifeline of the legal system. Definitely commercial laws are the lifeline of the legal system. And one more point which has been attracted my attention is that it was Yajnavalkya Smriti, wherein the roots or underpinnings are to be found, are to be traced of commercial laws. In view of the present scenario, that the gap by which the sovereign states, they have had abdicated their sovereign power to the WTO. In view of this, from this particular point of view, that those roots, those underpinnings which have been traced by Honorable Justice Sri Krishna sir are really notable, are really worth. I do not know because in view of the new Companies Act 2013, when it is enacted, and now the notion of the or concept of CSR, which has been ingrained there, incorporated there. In view of this, we do not know whether it would be appropriate to describe it as a dharma of all the corporates that to contribute into the social development. It is a social responsibility. And that's why, as the Maharashtra National Law University, which is just 5 years old, first batch has been passed out this year only. Graduate batch has been passed out this year only. And along with our regular courses, BA LLB honors and regular LLM, at the risk of repetition for few guests, I do share and mention that we have launched from this academic year 3 master's program. First one is the unique one and the novel one, or rather innovative one. That is MA Executive in Mediation. I'm really happy to share with you all that Honorable Justice B.N. Sri Krishna sir, as well as Honorable Justice Roshan Dalvi madam, they are the specialized visiting faculty of this particular program. Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai is not the only university in the country, but rather it is the only university in whole Asia to offer such a innovative, unique program. I'm really overwhelmed about the response which we have received. Rather, the program was launched more than a month, rather one module is over, and still we are receiving the applications, queries, requests for admission in the program. That speaks the volume about the program, because the faculty like Justice Sri Krishna sir and Justice Dalvi madam and all others, they richly contribute into the knowledge and training of all those mediators which are undertaking the education now. So that is MA Executive in Mediation and Conflict Resolution. Rather, we have to reject the request of the applicants now after a month or so. Similarly, in association with SEBI, since we are sitting in a financial capital of the country, we undertook the efforts that we roped in with the SEBI's National Institute of Security Management, NISM, and we have launched 1 year exclusively LLM program in investment and security laws. I'm again happy to share with you all, Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai is the only university which has offered and launched this program, master's program, LLM in investment and security laws as such. Therein too, we have received such a tremendous response. Seats are only 60, wherein applications which we have received were more than 400. Online entrance exam was conducted and interviews were conducted for 5 days, and finally the students were admitted on the basis of their performance. As well, along with these 2 program, master's program, another master's program which we have launched is LLM professionals. As we know that either judges or lawyers or whosoever have done their graduation in law and either engaged in administrative service or banking service or other such services, because of the profession, they were unable to pursue their master's degree. So for such professionals who have done their graduation in law, we have again launched the 3rd program, that is LLM professional, therein too we have received really a tremendous response from all other stakeholders. So these are the 3 master's programs which are being launched by the Maharashtra National Law University from this academic year. Similarly, we have also 10 centers almost. One is of arbitration. Similarly, another one is of the mediation, under which that master's degree program has been launched, and maritime law and all others as such. And recently we have set up the Center of Commercial Laws and Research as such, and we will come out with certain activities wherein we would require the guidance and the kind of the directions from the stalwarts like Justice B.N. Sri Krishna sir, Milind Sathe sir, Thakkar sir, Roshan Dalvi madam and Sujata Manohar madam and all others. Because as we know that why we are indulging and why we are trying to do all these things, reason is that it is not only the legality, that is the Act, Maharashtra National Law University Act, which was enacted by the government of Maharashtra in the year 2014, wherein the university was established in 2015. Section 5 of the Act obligates the university to contribute into the social development. That mandate, that obligation, we cannot fulfill on our own. Hence, as I did appeal then in the advisory committee, that please, since the university is newly set up one, newly established one, please generously come forward and help donate the university, because this is the university belongs to the Mumbai, and that's why belongs to the legal fraternity, legal profession, and it is the part and parcel of the legal profession. And really, I am happy that we have also reached to the MOU with Maharashtra Judicial Academy, TAN, wherein we have launched the certificate course in cyber laws and cyber securities. And all those trainee judges, which will come now there because of the pandemic, the batch could not come, could not go there. They will have to undertake a week or more training session as a certificate course at Maharashtra National Law University, and thereby we are closely associated, closely working together with the judiciary, with the legal profession. I'm really happy and grateful to even Advocate Milind Sathe sir, though this occasion is different, but I must express my thanks to him back, because whenever students approach for some or the other financial assistance, but in conferences or moot court, international moot court competitions or so on and so forth, he generously helps them. And really, sir, as the head of the institution, I express my sincere thanks to you. Dear friends, having heard these legal luminaries, I am nowhere to say anything about the commercial laws. In view of this, I once again thank Honorable Justice Sri Krishna sir, Justice Manohar madam, Honorable Justice Roshan Dalvi madam, Advocate Milind Sathe sir, and Nitinji Thakkar and his family, and all others. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. In the words of Helen Keller, alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. On behalf of the university, I would like to thank each person who came forward to make this day possible. I'd like to take the liberty to say that we are all part of a unit and would like to express gratitude towards each member. Honorable Mrs. Justice Sujata Manohar, Honorable Mr. Justice B.N. Sri Krishna, thank you for gracing us with your presence and your inspiring words. Today's lecture has been an eye-opener. We also thank Honorable Justice Ranjana Desai, former Judge, Supreme Court of India, and Honorable Justice Gautam Patel for gracing us in this occasion. I also thank Mr. Nitin Thakkar for helping us provide our students with knowledge and inspiring us with this grant that will make MNLU Mumbai achieve many more milestones to come. I also thank Dr. Milind Sathe for always being with us and guiding us in our endeavors. I would be failing in my duty if I do not thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir and Registrar Sir for continued guidance and encouragement. Today's program would not have been possible without our Assistant Registrar, Mr. Suraj Pal, PA to Vice Chancellor, Ms. Arya Ma'am, our IT Head, Mr. Manohar, Rajneesh Sir, Student Coordinator, Ms. Saisha Bacha, and the entire organizing committee. Thank you for your hard work and congratulations on your success. Thank you one and all for being with us today. Thank you.
Thanks to everybody.
End the meeting. Thanks everybody. Thank you. We are ending the meeting now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.